Got it. Original sound on. Alrighty. Alrighty. Just make sure. Sure we are online. We are online. Very nice. So today is a very special day in the Vaishnav calendar. And it is the disappearance day. Actually, disappearance day. Oh, we got the right song. Anyway. We'll sing another song. It's the disappearance day of Sripad Ramanujacharya. And so today we're going to speak about Sripad Ramanujacharya. And first we'll chant, O Hey Vaishnava Thakura. Vaishnava Thakur Dayara Sagare Dasya Karuna Gauri Diyapada Jaya Shodahe Maya Tumara Charana Jaya Vegatomi Dosha Jodi Jaya Guna Deha Dasai Jaya Satsanga Deoe Amare Mokshachi Sangera say Ekaki Amar Boy Bolo Harinam Sankirtane Tumi Kripa Gauri Shadu Bendu Diya Deho Krishna Damadane Krishna say tomorrow Krishna Titiparu Tomaraj Kati Ajay Amito Kangala Krishna Krishna Bore Daitava Vache Buje Uwe Vaishnavata Uyar Sagare Say Guruna Kuri Dipada Jaya Shodahe Maya Tomaraja Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Haribo 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 Nichako Haribo Haribo Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paramacharya All Sudhava Sadashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Charanada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Param Say Go Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopikapath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Mathuranam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yudamai Ki Jai Srimati Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Go. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Go. So Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Dinamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharni Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deja Tarani. So, it's good to see everybody. Welcome to the evening class, and tonight we're going to speak a little bit about Sripad Ramanujacharya. So, in that light, let us start. So, Om Ganati Miranda Shab Garanjana Shlakya Chakshur Unmeditam Yena Tasmai Shikarveda Maha. And I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who so kindly opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge while I was blinded in the darkness of ignorance. So, let us talk about a little bit about Ramanujacharya. And some of you who heard this morning's class will understand some of this is a little repetitive, or maybe very repetitive. So, of course, Ramanujacharya is very well known because he is the main acharya in South India, main Vaishnava acharya in South India. And, of course, we mentioned Madhvacharya is the main acharya in West India, especially in Udupi. But Ramanujacharya is the main acharya in Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh, those two states. And his headquarters was in Srirangam. Srirangam is south, how to describe it? It's south of Chennai, actually pretty far south of Chennai. And Chennai used to be called Madras. And right south of Chennai, before you get to Srirangam, you have many other holy places. So, especially, oh, voice too low? According to this, it's pretty, let me just look, see what my volume is. According to this, it's a decent volume. Okay, so anyway, go back to this. So anyway, so he is most associated with this place called Kanchipuram. Kanchipuram is just south. That's what I just mentioned as being just south of Madras, or Chennai as it's now called. So let's talk about him. And he is the head of one of the main sampradayas. There's 4 sampradayas. There's the Lakshmi Sampradaya, and that's the one he's the head of. And there's the Kumara Sampradaya. There's the Rudra Sampradaya, and finally we got the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, which we are members of, believe it or not. So, anyway, so these 4 sampradayas have 4 modern acharyas. Of course, the heads we already mentioned. So the head of the Sri Sampradaya, the modern head of the Sri Sampradaya, is Ramanujacharya. And it's interesting, even though his descendants, gurus, acharyas, whatever, they initiate disciples, but Ramanujacharya is considered like the savior of everyone. Even you may have another guru, and of course your guru is also considered, extremely exalted, and you serve your guru. But the point is that Ramanujacharya is considered the ultimate savior. And in this way, his sampradaya has been kept united throughout the years, which is actually very wonderful, which we're trying to do with ISKCON, by establishing Srila Prabhupada as the ultimate savior of everyone. Something not exactly like the church does, because the church has actually posited Jesus Christ as God, but we do not say that Prabhupada is God. That's impersonalism. We say God, Prabhupada is the Supreme Personality of Servitor Godhead. And by his mercy, by his teachings, he is saving us. Okay. Actually, Prabhupada jokingly said one time, he's saving us and shaving us. So let's talk a little bit, because we have limited amount of time and we have a lot to talk about. Okay. So also in the Sri Vaishnava sect, or Sampradaya, they teach the philosophy of Vishishta Dvaita, which is very similar to our Achitya Beta Beta Tattva. So which is, Vishishta Dvaita means qualified or purified monism. Monism means one. And, there's statements of monism in the Vedic literatures and our literatures too. Aham sarvasya prabhu, everything comes from me, but that's actually qualified monism. Latak sabram pravartate, etc. like that. And also mayatatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani naham teshvavastataha. By me in my unmanifested form, that's Chincha Beta Beta Tapa, which is very similar to qualified monism. All these universes are pervaded. Mayatatam idam sarvam jagadavyakta murtini matstani sarvabhutani naham teshvavastataha. Anyway, that's Bhagavad Gita. We're not going to get into that so much. Let's get mostly into the stories about Ramanujacharya. And of course, he's also famous for composing the Sri Bhashya, which is what? Sri Bhashya is the commentary on the Vedanta Sutra written by Sripad Ramanujacharya. So to understand Ramanujacharya properly, we have to discuss the previous acharyas. And particularly, the previous acharyas were related. Not all of them were related to Ramanujacharya, but the ones that came just before, related even family-wise. So, but really the early South Indian teachers were known as the Alwars. They were poets. And their poetry is sometimes considered to be like the Well, how do we say this? Oh yeah, the uh, Sri Vaishnava Vedas, basically. So, all right, let's talk about one of the previous acharyas that came after the Alwars. His name was Nata Muni, and he appeared about the year. These years are approximate 908 A.D. And he was the one primarily responsible for compiling the hymns and writings of the Alwars and the Vedas, putting them together in what's known as the Tamil Vedas, which are sung today. Tamil means in the language of Tamil and in the state of Tamil Nadu. And of course, even in Andhra Pradesh, you have a great number of the Brahmins are Tamils or come from Tamil Nadu. So this Nathamuni was married, and he had a son. And his son was Ishwara Muni. And Ishwara Muni died at a very early age, right after his wife got pregnant. Ishwara Muni's wife got pregnant. So Nathamuni, being very, very depressed and disturbed that his son had passed away, really just renounced this whole world. He just didn't want anything more to do with this world. Sometimes it's like that. A painful situation will actually give you the realization that there's no happiness in this world. I mean, sometimes someone will pass away, or someone will turn against you. Someone will. So many things may happen. Krishna, of course, says this in the Bhagavatam, Yashahamanagrindami Harishye Taddanam Shanai, that for those who I especially favor, sometimes I take things away, whether it's their money or their friends, and then they really have to take shelter, or their health, and then all they can do is take shelter with the holy names, and their family and friends will reject them. And then all they have is Krishna's name. Hey Govinda, Hey Gopal, Keshva Madhava, Dina Dayal. So anyway, so this is not the mood. He took sannyas, but his grandson was still there. In other words, he didn't really take care of his grandson. He just left his grandson to his grandson's mother. He knew that it was probably that grandson was probably taking care of it. So his grandson was actually Yamuna, who became Yamunacharya. Okay, got it? So this whole story is not about Yamunacharya. It's about Ramanujacharya, but we'll get to Ramanujacharya in a second. So Yamuna, he was a great scholar. And at that time, his guru was challenged by the king of Chola. The king of Chola was exacting taxes from everybody, including the Brahmins. And of course, that's prohibited. One is not supposed to tax Brahmins. One can tax everybody else, but not, what I mean is real Brahmins, not someone who says, I'm a Brahmin, he's a businessman, or he's doing some other type of work to make money. But someone who is actually a Brahmin is not supposed to be taxed by the government. So, anyway, so the king wanted to tax all the Brahmins. Said, if you want to get out of your taxes, you got to argue with my court pandit and defeat him. And so Yamuna's spiritual master said, all right, I don't want to bother with this. Here, take some money. He was a renounced soul. But Yamuna, he definitely did not want his guru to be offended. Now, that's very important. It reminds me of the story of Jiva Goswami, who defeated the Digvijay, because the Digvijay was declaring that he had defeated Sanatana Goswami. And so that's how we should become, like fire. If someone whom we love, especially a great pure devotee, is offended, we should become like fire to defend that individual, or at least leave this situation. But Yamunacharya thought, I'll argue on behalf of my guru. I'll go to the king. This is not going to be a problem. So Yamuna, who later on became known as Yamunacharya, went to the castle And he said to the king, I am going to argue with your pundit. And the queen, that means the king's wife, in case you didn't know what that was, the queen said, oh, I like this guy, he really has good spirit. And she said to her husband, the king, let's make a deal, a bet. Like if he wins, you give him half your kingdom. She was sure that he was going to win. And if the pundit wins, I will become your obedient servant. So the wife was saying, I will become your obedient servant to the husband. So you can understand she wasn't so obedient. She had her own mind, which is really interesting. She was more intelligent than the king. So there was a challenge. And first Yamuna said, okay, I get the first questions. You have to disprove these statements that I'm making. And if you can disprove these statements I'm making, you win. I'm only making 3 statements. So I'm just going to go over each statement one by one. He said the first statement is, your mother is not barren. So in other words, the pundit would have to prove that his mother was barren. How can he prove his mother was barren? Because he's there, he's the kid. Second statement is, the king is righteous. So how can the pundit prove that the king is unrighteous? That would be a great offense. Maybe get him killed. And the third one was, the queen is chaste. So the pundit would have to prove that the queen is unchaste, which would probably get him killed too. So the pundit said, I can't do this, but you have to do it, Yamuna, if you're going to win this. And Yamuna said, that's pretty easy. I can prove your mother's not barren, or your mother is barren, because she only had one son, and the tradition was, if one only had one son, then the lady was considered barren. And I can prove the king is not righteous, because the king has to assume the karma, a certain percentage of the karma of everybody in the kingdom. So how can he be righteous? So phew. And then I can prove the queen is unchaste because she's married to the king, who is considered the representative of all the demigods. Oh my God, that's a lot of men. And so he won, and he got half the kingdom. He was called Alabanduru, which means he was conquered. He has won half the kingdom. But when he got half the kingdom, he became enamored with the opulence. You give any of us opulence, Janmaishwarya, Sridhasya, Shibir, Edamana Ada Puman. If we have the opulence of wealth, or good birth, or beauty, or intelligence, one becomes very proud and then attached to those things. It's true. Like I'm attached to my computer here. It's my opulence in this world. Not understanding that Krishna is going to take all these things away ultimately. It's a fact, whether you like it or not. I mean, that's just a scientific fact, whether you like it or not. So, he became attached, and remember, his grandfather was Nata Muni, so Nata Muni, he wanted to rescue his grandson. He said, how can I rescue my grandson? So he sent one of his followers, a disciple, Nambi, to try to preach to Yamuna. But he couldn't get in to see the king. Yamuna was the king at that point. So he had this plan. So his plan was to provide certain type of spinach, green vegetable every day, to the to the king's cook. And it was delicious, special, I guess, spinach or something like that. And so he provided it every day, but one day he stopped and the king was irate. Where is my spinach? I want my spinach. And so the cook said, the guy didn't bring it today. And the king said, I want to see that guy. And so that way, this particular individual, Nambi, was able to see the king, who was Yamuna, who was Nata Muni's grandson. So Nambi preached to him and told him about his grandfather, and then Yamuna became completely convinced to give up the kingdom, and he became the great Acharya, Yamunacharya, and Shrirangam. So, Yamunacharya, after he became Yamunacharya, the main acharya there, had a disciple named Sri Shailapurna, and who was his chief follower, and he had two sisters, Bhudevi and Sridevi, and Bhudevi was the mother of Ramanujacharya, or Ramanuja at that particular point, and Asuri Keshavacharya was the father of Ramanujacharya, and they lived near Madras, which is also near Kanchi, Kanchipuram. Kanchipuram is quite an interesting city. It's divided in two halves. There's Vishnu Kanchi and then Shiva Kanchi. And in Vishnu Kanchi they worship Vishnu, and Shiva Kanchi they worship Shiva, and they argue all the time between them. But they never fight physically, they just argue about who is God. Quite an interesting place. I've been there several times, and it's really beautiful, and the people there, Brahmins there, they're just so nice. They offer you so much prasadam. It's just so sweet. So sweet, the people there. It's unbelievable. So Ramanujacharya, or Rama, appeared, I mentioned his father and mother a second ago, in the year 1017, approximately. And he was called Ramanuja because Anuja means he's the younger brother, of Lord Ram. And he's considered to be an incarnation of Lakshman, who was the younger brother of Lord Ram. And so he grew up and he got married at 16 years of age. And that's important information because we're going to tell you something about his marriage in a second. So, but he was naturally attracted to associate with the great devotee named Kanchipurna, who was a non-Brahmin disciple of Yamunacharya, but he was a great devotee. So, at this particular point, Ramanujacharya was living in Kanchipuram. We've mentioned Kanchipuram before. And he accepted a guru. His guru's name was Yadava Prakash. Yadava Prakash was a complete, absolute impersonalist. So remember, Ramanuja's very young. He's like 17 or 18 at this particular point, serving his guru, married, and serving his guru very nicely. As we know, when one resides in the ashram of the guru, one's supposed to serve the guru, the vapu and vani of the spiritual master. And of course, when the guru passes away, one serves the vani, which is the instructions of the spiritual master. So at this particular point, he was massaging his guru. And the guru was giving a commentary, Yadaprakash was giving a commentary on what's called the Chandogya Upanishad. And in particular portion of the Chandogya Upanishad, there's a description of the Lord's beautiful eyes, which are reddish, not the middle, but the sides are reddish. And Yadava Prakash gave his commentary saying that the description in the Sanskrit indicates that the Lord's eyes are as reddish as the behind of a monkey, which is horrible. And Ramanuja, when he heard this, he started crying, and the tears fell on his guru's back, and his guru said, "What are you crying about?" And he told his guru, and the guru got very angry. The guru said, "You give me your interpretation." And Ramanuja said, "Well, it means lotus, as red as a lotus," which was actually the bona fide interpretation. The guru got very angry, and even a second time, he defeated his guru when they were talking about Brahman, which is really interesting, because in the Mayavadis, they think the Brahman spirit can be covered by Maya. But the word Brahman means the greatest. So how can the greatest be covered or put into illusion by something else that is not the greatest, because whatever puts or covers the greatest must be the greatest. Makes sense. Anyway, so the Guru got really upset. Yadava Prakash got really upset, so we got to kill this priest. And so he thought, but killing's not such a nice thing to do, because if you kill someone, you get karma. Like Guru understood the Vedic literatures, he had read the Bhagavad Gita, action, reaction, karma, karma. So we thought, well, the way to get rid of karma is you bathe in the Ganges. But the Ganges is not here. So what are we going to do? Oh, I know. We will take all the boys in the ashram to the Ganges. We will go to the north, and then we will kill Ramanuja. And when we kill him, we will just immediately jump into the Ganges later, and we'll be absolved of all of our sins. Good idea. Actually, it doesn't work like that. If you do something accidentally, then you can be forgiven. But if you premeditate something, there's no forgiveness. You can jump into the Ganges millions of times. You can drink 10,000 gallons of Ganges water. It's not going to work. So, anyway, they all went to the Ganges, and when they were there, Ramanujacharya's cousin, who was part of the whole, not part of the plan, but actually who had overheard the plan. Ramanujacharya's cousin was named Govinda. So he told Ramanuja, sorry, I keep saying Acharya, because he later became Acharya, but Ramanuja. So he told Ramanuja that basically you better get out of here. So Ramanuja ran away in the middle of the night. And remember, this was like 1,000 miles away from South India, from Kanchipuram, perhaps even more miles. I don't even know the exact distance. And so Ramanuja went into the forest, and when he was in the forest, he found this couple. They were hunting birds, and this couple was actually Lord Narayan and Lakshmi, but they were basically making believe that they were just ordinary personalities who were hunting birds. And he helped them one night, and he woke up the next morning and he found himself back in Kanchipuram, distance of maybe 1,200, 1,300 miles. I don't know how many miles. It was a lot of miles. And he was just transported or teleported all the way back to Kanchipuram. So he continued to associate with his guru after that time. That's pretty liberal. I would not associate with someone who tried to do that. So then one thing happened to aggravate his guru even more. The king of Kanchi's daughter was ghostly haunted by a Rakshasa. And so so Ramanuja's guru was asked to get rid of the ghost. And when the guru came, the ghost just laughed at him and said, the only thing that'll work is if you get the lotus feet of Ramanuja, to touch this girl's head. And Ramanuja did that, and the ghost went away. And a tree fell down just to indicate that the ghost had fallen, had gone away. So this Yadava Prakash was so angry at Ramanujacharya. And eventually he kicked Ramanujacharya out of his ashram. He said, get out of here. Because you just explained this verse, Sarvakalpidam Brahma, that everything is Brahman, in an improper way. And remember, the guru was a Mayavadi. So in the meantime, and the guru, we'll come back to the guru in a second, because there's a happy ending for Guru Maharaj. So in the meantime, Ramanujacharya was serving this non-Brahmin disciple of Yamunacharya named Kanchipurna. And Ramanujacharya's wife, she was from a very, very strict Brahmin family. She was thinking, my husband's in Maya, serving this, whether he was a Shudra or a non-Brahmin disciple, whatever he was. So Shudra, basically. So she just seething in envy. So, she definitely didn't like that. So in the meantime, while she was seething in envy, Yamunacharya, who was in Sri Rangam, called for Ramanuja, because he knew Ramanuja was going to be the next Acharya. And Ramanuja, when he heard this, he immediately went, which is some distance away, to Sri Rangam. But when he got there, Yamunacharya had already left this world. But when he left this world, he was lying on his back, and he had 3 fingers clenched. Actually, 3 fingers clenched like this. right would be the right hand. And nobody knew what that meant because he never did that in his whole lifetime. And so Ramanuja was able to explain why he had three fingers clenched. One, he said, to teach people in general, in other words, make the whole world Krishna conscious, and then one finger opened up to write a Vedanta commentary, and three, to name one disciple after Parashara Muni. So when the other disciples of Munacharya saw this, they said, he's going to be the next Acharya. It's obvious. So, but still, Ramanuja went back to Kanchipuram because he had his family there. But he was really disinterested in all sorts of material life there, and really, he wanted an excuse to get out and just fully serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one thing happened, two things actually happened. One thing, he had a dinner appointment with his Shiksha Guru, who was from a non-Brahmin family. Remember we mentioned Kanchipurna. And he invited him to his house to take prasadam. And Ramanuja was away, and the guru, the Shiksha Guru, came early. He took prasadam, and Ramanuja's wife just threw out all the remnants and basically fed it maybe to the dogs or some shooters or something like that. And when Ramanuja came back, he said, "What did you do with my guru's remnants?" And then she said, I just fed them either to the dogs or whatever. And Ramanuja got really angry. But she's looking for an excuse to head for the hills or head for the temple. So another thing happened that really ticked Ramanuja off was that there was Kanchipurna's wife was drawing water from a well, and when she was drawing that water, some of her water from her bucket fell into the bucket of Ramanuja's wife's bucket. Okay. And Ramanuja's wife just got so upset she dumped all of her water. She contaminated my water. You. And so Kanchipurna's wife got so upset she was crying, went to her husband, and the husband said, "This is offensive, we got to leave this place." They left. And when Ramanuja heard this, he thought, now it's time for me to take sannyas. I got a good excuse. So he had a trick. He asked the Brahmin to carry a note that was ostensibly from his, I think his wife's name was Kanchi, or Kansha something, anyway, whatever it was. Rakshakambo, that was the wife's name, sorry, Rakshakambo. So he had asked the Brahmin to carry a note to his wife that was forged, because ostensibly the note was supposed to be from her father, who was saying there's a marriage in your village, so please go. So she got that note, which was actually from Ramanuja, not from her father, and she read it and she said, "Ramanuja dear, I have to go to this wedding." And Ramanuja said, "You go and I'll join you in a day or two." So as soon as she left, he took sannyas, and that was it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Hare Krishna. So then he started initiating devotees. His first disciple was his cousin, Dasarathi, and his second disciple was named Kuresh, who had a photographic memory. And Kuresh was such a good preacher, he preached to Yadava Prakash, Ramanujacharya's previous guru, and converted him. And Yadava Prakash also had a dream in which Krishna said, "You better surrender," and Yadava Prakash's mother said, "You better surrender." And so Yadava Prakash, who was the previous guru of Ramanuja, now took initiation from Ramanujacharya. Now I can say Ramanujacharya. So then Ramanujacharya left Kanchi and decided, and the deity there, which is called Varadata Raja, which means the wish-fulfilling, the king of the wish-fulfilling deities. And he went to Srirangam to study under another great devotee named Mahapurna in Srirangam. And Mahapurna said, "There's this very special mantra you can learn, and I'm going to send you to the guru, Goshtipurna, to initiate you in that mantra." So he went to Goshtipurna and he said, "Please give me the mantra." And Goshtipurna said, No, you're not qualified. So Ramanuja, being very determined, came back again and again and again. Finally, he was given the mantra, but he was also given the instructions. Don't reveal this secret mantra to anyone. Don't reveal it. It's secret. It will liberate anybody who chants it. You don't want to do that. So after he got the mantra, Ramanujacharya went to the top of the tallest building and chanted Om Namo Narayanaya, Om Namo Narayanaya. And he asked everyone to chant that mantra. And his guru got really angry. He said, "You have offended me. You have committed a great offense. You're going to hell." And Ramanujacharya said, "Guru Maharaj, please forgive me, but I don't mind going to hell as long as these people can be liberated." And this Goshti Purna, his initiating guru at this particular point, said, "You are actually my guru." And so it was a test by him to see Ramanuja's compassion. So that's the compassion, a devotee is willing to go to hell to save others. So then Ramanujacharya started traveling in different places and regulated deity worship in many different temples in India, except for the Jagannath temple, because when he tried to regulate the deity worship there, Lord Jagannath was actually pleased with the unregulated deity worship because it was being done by devotees on the Raganuga platform. So Lord Jagannath threw Ramanujacharya in the middle of the night to Kurmakshetra. Kurmakshetra means the place of the tortoise, or the tortoise incarnation. And there's a self-manifested deity of the tortoise there, tortoise incarnation, and you also have a garden in which they take care of tortoises. And so Ramanuja understood he shouldn't interfere with the deity worship in Jagannath Puri. Then the king of Chola, another story, was a Shiva worshipper, and he tried to convince everyone to worship Shiva, but he couldn't convince Ramanujacharya and his followers. So he called for Ramanujacharya with the idea of either killing him if he didn't surrender, or blinding him. So Ramanujacharya sent his chief disciple, the one with the photographic memory, Quresh, dressed as him, and Quresh really offended the king, and the king blinded him when he refused to acknowledge that Lord Shiva is better than Vishnu. So then the king later on developed like cancer in the throat and died. He was called Krimi Kanta, that means worm throat. So that's what happens when you offend a Vaishnava. So later on, this Kuresha went to Ramanujacharya. Ramanujacharya said, "Go to the deity of Varadaraja, ask for your eyes back." So Kuresh was such a great devotee, he went to the deity and he asked that the king would be forgiven. Can you imagine that? No vengeance at all. And then, what happened at that particular point? Ramanujacharya said, no, your eyes belong to me. You have to ask for your eyes back. So he went back to the deity, asked for his eyes back, and he got his eyes back. Wow. And he was able to see. Amazing story. Ramanujacharya also had philosophical discussions with many different people. He defeated 1,000 Jains in philosophical arguments, and they actually committed suicide when he defeated them. Wow, I guess they take very seriously their philosophy there. If someone defeated me, I wouldn't do anything like that. Okay, and there's a very interesting story about his compassion towards a devotee named Dhanar Das. Okay, Dhanar Das, let's get to the story. It's very interesting. Dhanar Das was walking with his girlfriend on the beach. But not only was he walking with his girlfriend, he was fanning her with a chamara, holding an umbrella over her head so she wouldn't have any sun on her head, and walking backwards like a Rath Yatra or something like that for girlfriend. Not Ratha, because there's no cart. But it was actually like a walking yatra, fanning the deity, and the deity happened to be his girlfriend. So when Ramanujacharya's disciples saw this, they started making fun. Look at that guy! Oh, he's so stupid! And Ramanujacharya said, no, 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 just keep quiet. I want to talk to him. So they called him over. Ramanujacharya said, why are you doing this to this lady? And this man, his name was Dhanuradas, he said, because she has beautiful eyes. And Ramanujacharya, instead of saying, this is nonsense, this is all pus and blood and guts and stool, which most ISKCON devotees would actually preach like that. They were saying, this is complete nonsense. Though, you know what the body's made of? It's a skin deep is this beauty. Ew. So, then what happened? You see, I'm having a good time telling a story. Ramanujacharya said to this Dhanuradas that if I can show you someone with more beautiful eyes, will you come with me? And Dhanuradas said, sure thing, I will come with you. Okay, so what happened is he came with Ramanujacharya to see the deity, and when he saw the eyes of the deity, he fell in love with the deity. And he became a great devotee just by seeing the deity. Like Rupa Goswami says, if you at all desire to enjoy society, friendship, and love, don't go to see that smiling boy, Krishna, who was standing on the bank of the Keshi Ghat, holding or playing a flute. Tribhanga, the threefold bending form. So he became a great devotee, and then he got married to his girlfriend. So that's not the end of the story. And the brahmacharis and sannyasis, they were thinking, this guy is so attached. He has this beautiful girl he's married to, they're living in a house, we're the real devotees. We're really renounced. We're staunch, we're renounced, we're dedicated. You know how sannyasis like me get sometimes. So then what happened is that Ramanujacharya understood this. So what he did is when the brahmacharis and the sannyasis were all sleeping, he switched clothes. They would sleep next to their clothes, their belongings. Of course, they didn't own very much, but he switched them. And when they woke up the next morning, they discovered their clothes were next to another sannyasi brahmachari, and they started fighting each other. Why'd you take my clothes? What's wrong with you? Attachment. Pauper is proud of his penny. So anyway, they were somehow or other attached. They were fighting each other. And then Ramanujacharya said, see how attached you are? So I'm going to show you how detached Dhanuradas is. So he said to some of his disciples, so you go over to their house while I'm talking to Dhanuradas, his wife is back at the house and she's resting, and you steal some jewelry. Okay, so they tiptoed over to Dhanuras's house, and Dhanuras's wife was sleeping on her side, and they took jewelry, her earring, I don't know how they didn't wake her up, I guess they did wake her up, from her transcendental body, or body, and she sort of turned over and they ran away. So the jewelry was only taken from one half of the body, not the other half of the body. So they went back to Ramanujacharya and said, look, we took the jewelry, so what happens now? And Ramanujacharya said, all right, I'm going to send Dhanuradas back home right now, her husband, and you watch in the window to see what's happening, how they interact. Okay, so Dhanuradas goes home, and he says to his wife, why have jewelry only half on your body? And she says, well, the brahmacharis came over, the sannyasis, whatever. Imagine being given that duty by your guru. They came over and they took the jewelry from that half of the body. I figured, let them do it because I figure they really need the money in the ashram. They must be suffering. So, and then to allow them to take the jewelry from the other side of my body, I turned over. But I guess I frightened them. And Ramanujacharya chastises his wife. He says, why didn't you just give them all the jewelry? Why didn't you just frighten them away? What's wrong with you? And you see, they were both very, very, very renounced in spite of being married. And the brahmacharis and sannyasis were watching in the window, and they went back to Ramanujacharya and they said, "Ooh, they're more renounced than we are." So they understood that the ashram that someone's in doesn't determine the renunciation. It's actually one's internal realization and love. And we know that. Raso varjam rasopasa panam drasani vartate. That if one has a higher taste from serving and from appreciating the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's real renunciation, not that someone is just like negative towards the material world. And another interesting story is Lord Jagannath sent Ramanujacharya to Navadvip, and he saw Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya said to him, "Only preach dasha ras," I mean servitude, "and I will later appear, and you will appear with me, because you're Ananta, you're Lakshman, you will be Balaram, and I will preach conjugal ras and, Sakya ras and Vatsalya ras, etc., like that." And so he listened to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, there's many stories in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya about the Acharyas meeting Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu way before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. Yeah, this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur's realization. So, when it came time to leaving this world, he told his disciples, "It's time for me to leave." And they begged, "Please stay, please stay." And so he said, "You have 3 more days." And he said, "You should make this deity of me." He had to make a deity. And when they made the deity, he breathed on the deity and installed the deity of himself that way. And that deity is still there in Srirangam today. In addition, when he left his body, the disciples preserved his body. They wrapped his body with some sort of herbal wrap. And his body is still there in Srirangam today. I've seen Ramanujacharya's body several times when I've been in Srirangam. It's quite amazing. And the deity is right in front of Ramanujacharya's body. And you can actually feel the presence of Sripad Ramanujacharya by going there. So right before he left, he told his disciples 3 different things. These are my final instructions, and really important final instructions that indicate the importance or the priorities that we have in Krishna consciousness. One is, you should always serve Vaishnavas. And so this is obviously very shastric. Mahatseva Mahura Vimuktes, Sadhusanga Sarvasasrakoi, Lavamatra Sadhusanga Sarvasiddhi Hoy. Very, very important. And the second instruction he gave them was you should have faith in the Vedas, but also in the Vaishnavas. So 2 of the instructions are about Vaishnavas. Really, really important. Really, really important. And actually there's 4 instructions. And the third instruction was you should conquer lust, anger, and greed. That's a really hard one. Vacha Begam, Manasakroda Begam, Jiva Begam, Buddharupashta Begam. And the 4th one is, of course, you worship God. I mean, that is a no-brainer. And so then, anyway, he left this body and he was laying down. His head was on the lap of Govinda. And he left this material world. And so on this particular day, we are commemorating the disappearance day of Sripad Ramanujacharya. And we know that for devotees, there is no death. We actually don't say he died today. We say he disappeared. In other words, he went somewhere else to serve Krishna. And great devotee, head of the Sri Sampradaya, and Lakshman, Balaram, Anantashesh, basically a manifestation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, So I guess we should we have 5 minutes for questions, if you don't mind. And I will unmute you. Give me a second. Let me unmute you. Hold on a second. Participants. You're allowed to unmute yourselves now or ask a question. Let me put the so I can see someone raising their hand. I got to put the participant window up there. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments? If not, we can end. I mean, I don't mind. I have a program in a few minutes. I'm in Raleigh right now. I'm spending half the week in Raleigh, which is the capital of North Carolina and has a very big university, and we're cultivating some students and trying to bring people to Krishna consciousness, and somehow or other trying to serve Srila Prabhupada and please Srila Prabhupada. By serving Srila Prabhupada, all knowledge is revealed. The dust of the lotus feet of pure devotees, like Srila Prabhupada, revealed to one all knowledge, both material and spiritual. And so we're hoping to achieve that. At least if Srila Prabhupada can be pleased with us, then I am successful in my life's journey. So any questions or comments? Questions, comments, arguments? No. Okay, so we are going to end now. And whoops. Today at 3 p.m. India time is, the puja ceremony. So we have this property right next to Govardhan, basically. We have several properties right next to Govardhan. But this program, they're doing the Bhumi Puja for this property. Is right on the Parikrama path, and it's meant for preaching the glories of Srila Prabhupada to everyone who comes to Govardhan. And we have thousands and millions of people come to Govardhan, some days actually, literally millions. The path around Govardhan is so packed you can't move, literally. You're touching the person in front of you, and the person in back of you is touching you, and it is really intense on those particular days. Also, it's intense on the Purnimas. Practically every Purnima, it is very intense. So we want everyone to pray for the mercy of Giri Govardhan. Okay, I think that's it. And that's Praneshra telling us this. Praneshra, of course, is in India, 3 p.m. India time. Of course, that's tomorrow for those of us who are today. That means it's going to be the 11th of February. Okay, so for him, today is the 11th of February. For us, today is the 10th of February, and for those in Australia and New Zealand, today is the 11th of February. And I will be visiting, another point, I'm going to be coming to Australia in April. I've already have my plans and ticket to come to Australia in April. Australia meaning I will be in 3 different places. I will be in the Sydney area, around the Sydney area. I will be in Brisbane, in the Brisbane area, and also I will be around New Govardhan, the community there. So those 3 different places. Most of the time I'll be in the Sydney area because we have so much to do, so many devotees, so much nectar. And I'm looking forward to seeing everybody there. I haven't seen the devotees there in a long time, over 2 years ago. So that's good news for everybody. Or at least if you're happy I'm coming, hopefully you're happy. Okay, on that happy note, we'll see everybody same time, same station tomorrow evening. All glory is due